Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, the regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site, we have Jason Ball, president of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, Kathy Andersen, director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at LPED, and Bill Udell. He is the co-owner of Don't Panic Labs. We're here to discuss the growth in the global sports technology industry, which is expected to grow from $34.25 billion in 2025 to nearly $69 billion in 2030. That's according to a report in February from Sports Technology Market. It is great to have all of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. I mean, it's not bad, a double in 5 years. I'll take that. Yeah. Before we get into the business of sports technology, let's start with you, Jason. Give us an overview of Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, where you are within the sports ecosystem. Because when I think of Lincoln, Nebraska, I think of big football players.
That's right.
I think of agriculture.
We're really proud of that background in history. You know, at the Chamber, we're the lead agency for economic development and business support. And, you know, we've seen a neat flowering of sports technology companies out of Lincoln, companies like Udell, companies like Elite Forum, FanWord, and others. And it's just been an exciting time to be part of that, in addition to growing sectors like ag tech.
And Kathy, tell us about the work you're doing at LPED, and you're formerly of Udell as well.
That's correct. I worked at Udell for over 4 years. Now I'm the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, helping our startups to get their start and scale rapidly so we can have a successful startup ecosystem.
And Bill, Don't Panic Labs. That's an interesting name for sports tech.
So we're actually stole it from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We're a bunch of nerds that happen to love kind of all things entrepreneurial, but especially sports tech.
And which is interesting because you're leveraging work that's coming out of academia, and that's spawning these entrepreneurial companies that are the future of sports tech.
Yeah, you know, beginning 15 years ago, we actually had a relationship that started with the University of Nebraska Athletics that resulted in a lot of technology that we could create and launch into the private sector.
Kathy, let's talk about the sports tech market ecosystem. What does that look like? Who are some of the players?
Yes, we're excited for planting the flag in the ground on sports tech and being part of that global ecosystem. Not just Udell, we also have Open Doors, a big player, early entrants. They had the crystal ball before NIL came into the play. And name, image, and likeness, they help athletes access that. We have other thriving companies. Jason mentioned a couple of them. FanWord, they are telling athlete stories all over at different levels, and they have an AI-powered element to their business as well. Then some others I want to name, SheMate and Plug Sports and Sports Trip. We're starting to get a critical mass that's really spawning a lot of productivity.
Yeah, Jason, it's interesting. It says here that it's estimated over 100 or more startups are underway at any given time. It's remarkable.
Yeah, now, and that's broader than just sports tech, but we're seeing a growing ag tech sector with programs like the Combine, which is another partnership through the university system that is focused exclusively on leveraging our capacities and capabilities in the agricultural markets. And it's been fun to watch companies spin out of that as well. Lincoln has done a great job of building some things itself at a community level that I think have come easier to larger cities and communities, and so we've had to create that from the ground up, and we're really proud of the huge sector that we have now compared to 20 years.
Well, Jason, let's talk about that some more. What policy or infrastructure investments, what has been prioritized to keep this momentum going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so we're going to need to continue programs like prototype grants, and then we've had to go out and really encourage early stage investors. Angel investing is something that did not have a large presence in Nebraska going back 20 years. That's really been built up into a couple of great networks. Investments from the state through the Business Innovation Act that is now over a decade old are really what is fueling a lot of this activity with organizations like Invest Nebraska, and which has spawned the Combine that is moving into that ag tech sector. And out of that is coming amazing products like grain weevil, which keep farmers from having to go in grain elevators, which is a very dangerous part of the job for maintaining that equipment on a farm.
So Kathy, you had mentioned leveraging emerging technologies such as AI. What type of criteria do you look for when you're identifying a sports tech startup that's ready to go at scale? Because the word AI is used a lot.
It is, yes it is. And we have a lot of deep expertise in Lincoln. People might not know it, but we have some true experts who love to share their knowledge and build that community so that our entrepreneurs are stronger in it, our technologists are stronger in it. Now, for our Launch L&K grant program, when we're evaluating startups or working with other startups in the community, yes, I definitely leverage my background, and I focus on how does this entrepreneur or the company, how do they put the customer at the center of their plans? How do they put the customer at the center of their product roadmap? And do they have some unique insight into the market or the niche that they are exploring and then making a great advantage of? And can they do that?
Right, and Bill, speaking of putting the customer at the center, when you're integrating AI and other emerging smart technologies, what are the biggest ethical and data considerations that you need to make?
I mean, I think the thing that we clearly think about is, who really owns that data at its core, especially the derivative products of that data. You start passing things into an LLM, it becomes pretty entangled. And if that is sourced from an individual, we have all kinds of questions of ownership of that information.
Yeah, and that's why it's critical to get this framework developed at a national level, because of course it's challenging when you're operating across multiple jurisdictions.
Right.
Just in the US, by the way.
Right, right. It's difficult and it's a patchwork right now. When we look at it, we try to just conform to the GDPR because it is the most stringent standard, but it'd be great if we could actually look across all the boundaries and have it be just contiguous.
Yeah, and that's pretty consistent across industry overall. What has Don't Panic Labs, how have you helped scale some of the technology?
Oh gosh, we have been involved all the way from product ideation to product development to iteration on products. We work through the entire life cycle of the entrepreneurship and innovation stack.
Kathy, how long does it take when you go from ideation to here we are? Now we're looking, investors are coming to help us scale.
Yeah, I think that there's a wide range, Jill. That's a good question. We encourage startups to make that a smart journey, to use their capital efficiently and to attack the hardest problems first to try to accelerate that path. That being said, we want entrepreneurs to identify, are they going to be a high growth startup that has a specific exit strategy and they are going to pursue that at that rapid pace? Are they going to be an excellent company? Are they going to have a big economic impact over a long term? And that is truly something that the founder needs to understand. They need to grasp that and have those conversations with their founding team.
Yeah, well, it's a great point that you make. Don't just provide solutions for a problem that doesn't need to be solved. And I think a lot, Jason, I see you shaking your head over there, that sometimes that's where entrepreneurs can get hung up.
Yeah, and that's why at a community level we've made investments in programs like the In Motion Accelerator or the Generator program. We've gone out and found partnerships with experts in fail fast and ideation, just to help companies determine are they onto something that's really going to have traction in their market like they imagine it will, or do they need to pivot and change directions. And so that's part of the ecosystem that our community leaders have really built over time, and that's how successful mid-sized cities are doing it now.
Well, it's interesting because at the jump here, I thought of Lincoln, Nebraska. You think of big football players, right, in the cornfields. How can Lincoln better position itself on the national stage as a sports tech hub? I mean, we have the 2026 World Cup coming up, right? And just growing the interest in the athletic ecosystem in general.
Yeah, well, like a lot of the companies that we've mentioned already, including Elite Form or Huddle, like these are companies that are already in these high performance spaces. And I think when you take a World Cup 2026 type of event, Lincoln's playing on that stage. We're supporting athletes on that high pressure, high profile of an arena. It's something we're really proud to do, and obviously it's something that you mentioned through the football program as well as a leading national volleyball program. It's a place where Lincoln and our athletes have been on that stage. I mean, the university continues to double down on investments in the Tom Osborne Center that's now part of the athletic program. It's one of the world's largest nutrition centers.
Right.
And so I think we're going to see some more investments and more exploration, and companies come out of sports nutrition from Lincoln in the not too distant future as well.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
There really is, and Bill, when you think about it, you don't necessarily think of athletic centers as sports tech, but again, when you bring up the nutrition center and the training facilities for these athletes, it is 100% infrastructure and sports tech.
It's all a catalyst for innovation.
Yeah.
You build space like that, you build capacity like that, you can't help but have innovation happen. Innovation comes from the collisions that are created from infrastructure like that.
Yeah, and Kathy, it's interesting, you brought up before NIL. What about the tools for today's collegiate and high school athletes balancing performance, their allegiance to the team, but then also building their brand and visibility?
Yes, and that is an emerging space. We need to think
Right.
of the athletes, and we need to make sure there are good structures there to help them. Yes, our company's Open Doors that we talked about is truly a partner to athletes in that way. They're doing a great job. FanWord as well. They think of the athletes. They want to tell those athletes stories so that they can shine and they can make their sports career. It's truly an important problem, and we're excited about the work that's being done by Lincoln startups in that area.
I want to bring up Huddle for a moment here because, of course, you have background there. When you think about the data that's going into tracking player performance, whether it's with AI, whether it's with machine learning, how are these tools changing the roles of coaches in both talent development, acquisition, retention, and the strategy? How do you see that today, and then how do you see that evolving?
I like how you ask the question, because Huddle is a global sports tech company that might be not as known as it should be. And they do cover the entire value stream, like you said, capture, analyze, getting it to the fans. Yes, it's making a huge impact. Huddle's doing a great job of staying ahead of that. They're bringing value to every moment in sports. And, you know, the new things emerging, like how the wearables fit into the strategy, but you asked how do they put the coach front and center. That has always been a part of the company's DNA, and when the coach gets the game breakdown right there, so fast, so at their fingertips to enable their coaching. If you go back to the origin of Huddle, they identified the problem where coaches were spending so much time trading game film, and just, you know, their trip home on the bus was craned over a laptop or something, and not spending that quality time with the athletes, not being able to be there for them and do the job that they love.
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, it's a different conversation, but NIL is also going to change the calculus, right? It's different if you're a coach that's used to building a team for 4 years, and now you have players moving around, right, with NIL opportunities. And again, it's interesting, Bill, Kathy brought up wearables as an example. You go back to the data conversation again.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
it's the intersection of policy, regulation, sports tech, emerging technology in any sector. It's converging, and it's converging quickly.
Yeah, but it's been the story of technology forever. I mean, we'll eventually sort this stuff out. Hopefully, in the next few months, we'll figure out a lot about what's going to happen next with AI.
Yeah. So when you think about this going forward, as we're wrapping up here, the next 5 to 10 years, it's how do you think of what's next? It's happening so quick now because, back to Kathy's point, how coaches are becoming more efficient. They're leveraging the same types of tools that we leverage at Nasdaq to make our jobs more efficient, or any other industry for that matter.
Yeah, well, I think the bigger question, for Lincoln specifically,
Right.
and I'll grow this, but we've got to continue to focus on the investments that have served us so well, right? And so I mentioned the Business Innovation Act that was passed several years ago. That's helped us prototype more of these tools. We need to reevaluate, are those investment tools serving us and serving other communities in the way that they have, or because of changes like NIL, because of some of these conversations that people are having around who owns whose data that's generated through activities, that's going to change how states and communities really need to make investments in encouraging their startup community, and Nebraska's not going to be any different.
Well, what's interesting about that is leveraging these emerging technologies. I think that's a benefit for middle markets, more regional areas of the country. You don't have to be in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and so forth. And it's an uncovered gem in a way with the talent that's there, especially the university systems, right? Whether it's Lincoln or other Midwest areas, Indianapolis is an example as well. But being able to attract, retain, and continue to evolve. These technologies can be leveraged in a very interesting way for middle markets, I think.
Look, I think companies like Huddle are the best example that you can do anything you want to from Lincoln. That started out with 3 people that were going to school together that were big football fans and loved being around that environment and thought they had an idea to help coaches solve a problem, right? That's grown into a corporate headquarters in Lincoln of 500 people that are working there every day, and I think their global staff is about 5,000 people. So it's really grown into something that the community is proud of, and I think the future's bright for Lincoln when we look ahead.
I mean, Kathy, that's one of those stories you hear, 3 roommates come together and they, kick off a project that now has global scale. It's quite fascinating.
Yes, they've done great work along the way, and they've been smart about bringing in mentors and leveraging their resources to be able to grow that.
Yeah, and final words to you, Bill, you know, as you think about the next 5 to 10 years and scalability, right?
Yeah, you know, the scale of things is going to be massive, and I can barely wrap my head around the idea of 10 years out from now. Just seeing how fast things have grown thus far with AI. When you think 2 years ago, how far we've come in that amount of time, I can't even imagine what 10 years might look like.
Apply Moore's Law to that, right?
Oh, Moore's Law.
I mean, this conversation could look very different 6 to 12 months from now.
Right.
With how, you know, quick it is evolving, which of course comes back to, you know, making sure that we have that framework so we understand how to operate in the most compliant way.
Yep.
All right, appreciate everyone's insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me for MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.